There is an emotion that spiritual spaces often try to avoid: rage, especially feminine rage. You'll hear phrases like stay positive, or raise your vibration, or choose love and unity. And while there is truth in those ideas, they can become dangerous when they teach people to abandon their anger or any authentic emotion they may be feeling. Because anger is not the problem. Unintegrated anger is the problem. I'm Kat Grace. Thank you for being here. Let's get started. Rage is a signal, a deeply intelligent signal. It arises when something sacred inside you has been violated, a boundary crossed, a truth ignored, a dignity dismissed. And for many people, especially those raised in dysfunctional families or emotionally immature environments, anger was not allowed. Maybe you were told you were too sensitive. Maybe you were told, just get over it. Maybe anger led to punishment, rejection, or withdrawal of affection and love. Maybe you learned that the safest way to survive was to suppress the feelings of anger. So instead of expressing anger outwardly, you turned it inward. You questioned yourself. You berated yourself at times. You minimized your own hurt. You tried to understand everyone else's perspective while abandoning your own. And over time, that suppression creates something very painful, because anger that cannot move outward begins to poison inward. It becomes shame. It becomes depression. It becomes self-doubt. It can become addiction. You begin asking questions like, was I overreacting? Maybe I misunderstood. Surely they didn't mean to hurt me. Perhaps I'm the problem. But often what was actually happening was something much simpler. A boundary had been crossed, and your nervous system knew it. Anger is the nervous system's way of saying something here is not right. And instead of honoring that, we suppress it. In healthy development, anger helps a child individuate. It helps them say no. It helps them separate from what harms them. But when anger is suppressed for years, sometimes decades, people become disconnected from that boundary signal, cut off from it. They may tolerate behavior that deeply hurts them. They may stay too long in relationships that drain their life force. They may become extremely compassionate towards others while abandoning themselves and criticizing themselves. And eventually, something happens. The anger resurfaces, often suddenly and often intensely. And when it does, many people become frightened by it. They think something has gone wrong in their healing. Anger feels so intense and it just doesn't seem productive. Sometimes the opposite is true. Sometimes rage appears because your nervous system finally feels safe enough to acknowledge the truth of what happened. And that moment can feel overwhelming. But it is also incredibly important because sacred rage is different from reactive anger. Reactive anger lashes out. Sacred rage clarifies. Reactive anger tries to control. Sacred rage restores order. It says that was not acceptable. That crossed a line. That harmed me. That hurt me. And I will not abandon myself to keep the peace. This is the moment where power begins returning. Not power over others, power over your life. You become sovereign. Sacred rage reconnects you with your instincts. The instincts that say, I deserve respect. I deserve reciprocity. I deserve honesty. I deserve environments where my nervous system can relax. And when people reconnect with those instincts, their entire life begins reorganizing. Relationships shift, boundaries strengthen, confidence rises, clarity emerges. This is why anger is so often present in very deep healing work. It is part of the integration process. But the goal is not to stay angry forever. The goal is to listen to what anger is telling you, to give it the space and to honor it and hear it. Because underneath anger is almost always grief, deep grief. Grief for what happened, grief for what was lost, grief for what should have been, grief for the version of you who endured things without the support you deserved and needed. And when that grief is allowed to move, anger softens naturally. It transforms. It becomes clarity. It is no longer your shame to carry. It becomes self-respect. It becomes discernment. You stop feeling like you have to convince people of your worth. You stop explaining boundaries repeatedly. You stop explaining basic empathy to grown adults. You stop tolerating behavior that destabilizes your nervous system. Not because you hate anyone, not because you wish harm on anyone, but because you have finally chosen yourself. And choosing yourself is not selfish. It does not mean you have a cold heart. It does not mean you're cruel. It is alignment. It is being connected to self. Spiritual maturity does not mean being endlessly tolerant. It means recognizing where compassion ends and self-abandonment begins. It means holding space for others without sacrificing your own well-being. Sacred rage helps us find that line. It restores our ability to feel in a safe way. It teaches us how to say no, how to protect what is sacred in our lives. And once that power returns, something beautiful happens. The nervous system begins to relax, to repair, to give up the hypervigilance, because it finally trusts that you will listen to its signals. You're no longer self-abandoning. You become someone who can feel deeply without being consumed. You no longer lose yourself in the emotions. You become someone who can love openly while being contained and staying with self. Someone who can walk away when something violates their integrity. That is not bitterness. That is wisdom. That is maturity. That is integration. That is wholeness. So if you are feeling anger arise during your healing journey, pause before judging it. Just pause. Ask the anger what it is trying to protect. Ask what boundary it is asking you to restore. And ask what truth it has been holding for you all along. Because sometimes the emotion we were taught to fear the most is the one that guides us back home to ourselves. That is sacred rage. And when it is honored, it becomes one of the most powerful forces for healing. If this resonates with you, like and subscribe. Leave me a comment down below, Sacred Rage, if you know what I'm talking about. We explore spirituality here in a way that honors the nervous system, the psyche, and the soul. Because real healing is not about suppressing our humanity. It is embodying it. Until next time, take care.